What epitomizes sports? For the fan, it is the memory. Games rolling into seasons. Two people sitting around arguing, what if? It was the era of UCLA. Coached by John Wooden and led by the dominant play of center Lou Alcindor, the Bruins had won 3 consecutive national championships. As the new season began, senior center Bob Lanier was about to show the rest of the country what everyone here already knew.
My pops used to take me to watch Bonaventure when Bonaventure would come to the Ard all the time, and so I used to go down there when Sam and Tommy Stith and Whitey Martin, those guys were playing with Bonaventure.
In October of 1968, Bonaventure was placed on NCAA probation because of a recruiting violation.
When they came back for Bob and Billy's senior year, you know, this is the year we got to get it done.
Began to gel from their first day on. Billy Kalbaugh was a magician with the ball.
Sometimes we'd stand there and watch him go through his little routine between the legs and around the back and just go by people.
Paul was like the John Havlicek of college basketball at that time.
Matty was a kangaroo.
He was 6'6", but he rebounded 6'9", 6'10".
Bubba Gary was very quick and fast.
He ran like a deer.
Could jump and rebound with the best of them.
Greg was a good shooter. He was a good passer.
He had the ability to be at the right place at the right time.
He just complimented Matt and Bob very, very well. Everybody loose because he was just very comical.
Get the ball to Bob.
One-on-one, he was unstoppable because he had so many fakes and moves.
We had one sign in our locker room. All it said was College Park, Maryland. That's where the Final Four was that year. So I think when we approached it on October 15th, we were very confident that we could accomplish an awful lot of things with that team.
I knew our first test would be Duquesne, which was in early December. They had beaten us pretty soundly the year before. They had the same players back. We had the same players back.
Wade in the water.
Oh yeah, Wade in the water, man. That was definitely our song, man. It was a great song. Whenever we heard that song, you know it was time to get busy.
Wade. I can't say it.
For a bunch of white guys up there, man, they love Motown up there.
At that particular time, I knew that we were going to be very good.
I was fortunate enough to get a steal, and I knocked it. I think it was to you, Hoff.
Yeah. Billy stole the ball. He tapped it to me. I gave it back to Billy, and
it was going down for a layup.
Somehow it came off the rim.
And Hank Simentowski, I don't know how, he knocked it away. And
I remember putting it back up on the rim. I think he took it off the rim again.
Let's be honest, he took it right off the rim.
There was no call.
It is a wake-up call. Say, look, we got to play better, more consistently, or else we're going to get beat again.
Coach Weise would work to make sure that didn't happen. His quiet style of motivation and instruction blended perfectly with his team.
Larry was a laid-back coach. He knew basketball very, very well. He knew how to handle these kids.
I enjoyed playing for Larry Weise. He was a player's coach. He was concerned about you as a player and as a person. He was always on my case to make sure I wasn't skipping in classes and stuff like that.
But he'd take you aside. He'd call you in his office on. Called Hoffman daily, like Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock before practice, and you'd have a one-on-one, and he'd tell you a few things that happened during the game, and he was a gentleman like that.
He was an introvert, and a lot of things, I think, burnt inside of him.
We used to ride the bus from Buffalo to Olean for games. And all of a sudden, Larry would go, and I look at him, and then he'd go, he would be going through the whole game, and I knew he was seeing the whole game flash before him, and he was saying, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that?
I loved him, man. I absolutely I love him today. He never got in your way. You know, he came, he made our job simple. He was efficient.
I think everybody basically knew what he expected of you, and I think that was his major asset as a coach, is that I don't think the guys played confused.
Bobby, Billy, they were kind of extensions of him. Those two had to understand. Those two had to know. And so he would be more forceful with them.
Just rode Bob and rode Bob and rode Bob.
And I started shaking and crying because I didn't know what to do.
I guess he was just looking for a whipping boy, and I think that's why I admired him. He started at the top.
I think he was just trying to prove a point, you know, that you can't ever stop working. You know, don't get satisfied with being big and 6'10". Keep working. Maybe you're not going to get every rebound, but you know what? You can damn sure give an effort to try to get them.
10 more wins, including 3 against arch rivals Niagara and Canisius.
You could lose almost any other game, but to lose to Niagara Canisius was just unthought of at that time.
The first round, we played a very good Davidson team. We beat them by 13 points.
It was Kalbaugh. And now it was time for redemption. The regional final, a rematch with Villanova, a chance to avenge the season's lone defeat.
So we put him outside in a completely unorthodox offense on the weak side and overloaded the other side.
And it ended up being a great coaching move.
We just played very well, and we dominated every aspect of the game.
And all of a sudden,
Billy Kalbaugh was bringing the ball down court, and I was like in front of him, and I went like this, and then I turned because it looked like he was about to shoot, so I turned to look at the hoop, and the next thing I knew, my leg came out under me.
I didn't see it. I do remember turning around and looking and watching our trainer run out to him.
And I never knew what had happened until, you know, they told me that Chris Ford had run into my knee.
He had worked so hard, you know, to reach that point, you know, every day. I mean, it wasn't just that particular season. It was, you know, you have 3 years of recruiting classes there too. 2 things really, you know. One was just devastation for the team, and the other was, you know, just heartache and devastation for Bob.
If they were to go any further, they were going to have to dig deeper. The Final Four, UCLA versus New Mexico State. Bonaventure would face Jacksonville. 1 game away from the finals.
Matt Gantt held his own on that one.
He did. Yeah.
It was like, let's go, let's play, and let's get it on.
Artis Gilmore, I remember looking on his face. He was a great, big, tall, 7'2", and he was like in match jumping right over him.
He started out with 4 or 5 jump shots in a row from about 25 feet out, and that got us off to a good jump start.
Them guys are playing their butts off. I mean, hustling, but you can see they were trying to climb this mountain. It was like, and they were like right to the peak of the mountain, and then
You got to do it, Clark, baby.
in the second half, those 2 big old 7-foot guys just kind of like said, pa-pow, pa-pow.
To one time feel that you are the best in the country, it's a very exhilarating feeling. You know it. You know, I mean, it's not a question that you think it, you know it. And the kids knew it.
To be part of something, you know, to be that underdog, to have given everything you've got, to look around you and have everybody else do the same thing. The happy ending is to be able to look back and hold your head up and say, I was there. I was part of that history.
Thank you so much, Larry, for coming here. We've had a chance, because of your relationship with Cameron Hurst, to have a couple of your players here. And he's written up great articles in advance, those being Paul Hoffman and Billy Kalbaugh. And those articles were principally as a result of conversations he had with you, the coach.
Yeah, he called me a few times.
So how was the connection? How was the...
Well, I have to go back a ways, probably 19, 20 years ago, when I was retired, and we were looking for a place in Florida to retire during the off season, during the cold weather. And a good friend of mine told me that Joe Mistretta had a place to rent. Okay, now I didn't know Joe at that time. My friend did, and so I called Joe, and we made a deal. I was going to rent his place for a couple months. Well, my mother got sick at that time, so I had to cancel out. But a year or so later, my mother passed away, and so I called again, and we found a place down there to rent for 3 months at this time. And the place is Lazy River Village. It's a perfect retirement community for guys like myself and my wife, and to enjoy the nice warm weather and all the activities that go with it. And in this community, there's people from New England, people from the Midwest, people from New York State, and Canadian people. We have a lot of the Canadians there. And you have dinners, and you have all sorts of activities, bowling, golf, tournaments. And of course, we generated to Western New York people. And we got to know several couples here in Jamestown. And of course, Joe and Rosemary Mastretta were two of the first people we knew, and they introduced us to a lot of the other people, Gary Clark and his wife, and Tony, what's her last? Pardon me?
La Barbara.
La Barbara, and a couple others, you know. And we got to the point where we socialized with them. And as time went on, their families came down, our kids came down, but then all of a sudden this little youngster comes by the name of Cameron, and he comes dressed as Inspector Gadget. So we got to know, I mean, this is when he was small, so we've known Cameron and the Mastrettas a long time. And of course everybody else that's from Jamestown. And we've just had a glorious, to be honest with you, retirement activity.
Well, what Cameron has done and what you permitted him to do, to give us the backstories on Paul Hoffman, Billy Kalbaugh, and then you introduced him to Bob Lanier, we stand in awe. His articles were really well written. We've had big attendance because of that, and yeah, this whole, and to have you here in Jamestown to salute his graduation.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to his party. I remember one time he interviewed me, but he was I think he was 8th grade. He was in 8th grade, 8th or 9th grade at the time. And he called me up and he says, you know, Coach Weise, would you mind if we talk? I said, yeah, come on over. And I really kind of lost track of his age, you know, at that time, you know, and he came over and we had a nice conversation, very articulate and everything. And, you know, he after the interview, he left, and I talked to Joe and Rosemary, and I says, by the way, what grade is he going into? Now, he was in 8th grade. I thought the young man was at least a sophomore or junior. I just couldn't get over how an 8th grader could talk like he talked. And so it doesn't surprise me what this young man has done. And I've read some of his articles. He writes extremely well. It's a natural talent as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's like a golfer and a low handicapper. You got it, you got to use it. You know, you know.
Well, he's heading towards your alma mater.
Yeah, that's great. That's terrific.
So you're a Monroe County guy. Right,
right.
So what was the draw to St. Bonaventure?
Well, Sam Rosetta, who was a golf pro at the time, he won the United States amateur title, outstanding golfer, and he was a Bonaventure graduate. He got me interested in St. Bonaventure, and one of the things that was a connection was that Eddie Donovan was the basketball coach at St. Bonaventure at the time, and he and Sam were teammates on the Bonaventure team during the late 50s, 48, 49, 50. And so he called Coach Donovan about me, and Coach came up and took a look at me, and that's how I got to go to St. Bonaventure.
Well, you had quite a high school career. I mean, you were
and Frank O'Donnell, my high school principal, was a Bonaventure graduate, and I also had the support of my high school coach, Dick Baruti, and another Bonaventure grad was John Trevison, who ran our local CYA. So between you know, those 4 or 5 guys, they really helped me.
Did you know much about Bonaventure?
What Sam had told me, You know, I mean, Bonaventure had quite a reputation in Rochester. Although I didn't have any connection with the Rochester alumni, I had more connection with Sam and John Trevison and Frank O'Donnell, who were Bonaventure graduates. And I remember they took me to the Odd, the Buffalo Odd, and I was awed. I really was. You know, just to play in front of 12,000 people was for a young 16 or 17-year-old kid was really eye-awakening, to be honest with you. I said, me, can I play here? You know, you really get doubts, you know. I mean, you look up in the Odd, and it was impressive, really. And the game was close. Bonaventure won by a few points, but I got to talk to the coach again, and that's how I got to go to St. Bonaventure.
You were a guard?
I was a guard, and I played with my first 2 years. Well, I was a freshman. Freshmen didn't play varsity then. And then my sophomore year, we had a decent year, but I got hurt. I broke my hand, so I was out for a month, and you know, you never really fully recover after a couple weeks. You know, I was in a cast for 4 weeks, and I think we ended up 500. But my junior and senior year, we had a really good club. We didn't have a star, really. We had 7 guys that really hustled, and we had I think we had 5 guys in double figures, that averaged double figures, from 10 points a game to 14 points a game. And I was high scorer with 14 points a game. And we were just average kids who, with 2 years of experience and who played together, were a force. These two teams, and we went to the NIT, and we got to the semifinals. We beat Seattle and Cincinnati. Played great ball, and then we lost to we lost in an overtime to I forget right now. It just slips my mind. So long ago. But then my senior year, we went again, and we got to the semifinals, and we got beat by Xavier. But we were successful, you know. And to be honest with you, those 2 years formed pretty much my coaching philosophy, which was average kids who people overlook, they're under the radar, with a couple years experience, can play together and become a force, a real strong force in basketball. And if you get a star on top of that, then you can really, you hit the national scene. And pretty much my clubs were like that. I took some players that maybe nobody else, I don't say they didn't want them, they overlooked them, really. They fell through the cracks, and I liked them. And I can remember going to one tournament where, I don't want to mention any names, but it was in New York City, and it was an all-star high school team. Now it's all AAU, but back then you went to a high school tournament at the end of the year, and they had all-star teams. And the New York City team, the Washington team, the New England team, you know, and they were playing, and all the coaches were there. And I'm sitting next to a coach, and one person's name comes up, and, well, he can't play for us. Well, I had already given him a scholarship, okay? And that was a Division II team. I'm a Division I team. I'm just telling you what a Division II team wouldn't take my kid that I liked. You got what I mean? And so it does differ. Really, it differs. And that's how I built my clubs, really. I mean, there were a few kids in the end that, you know, I competed against kids I competed for kids against schools that I could compete against. But if North Carolina and the ACC got involved, I got out. You know, you know, the Notre Dame, you name the top, they're still the top teams, Big Ten teams. I got out, you know. But if, you know, schools that, Canisius, Niagara, you know, I was up against Syracuse a lot of times before Boeheim came, Roy Danforth was there then. We went after the same kids. He had the same philosophy. So we we competed. He won a couple kids, and I won a couple kids. But I was very fortunate. The kids I had were all good kids. They won because they played together, and it was that kind of philosophy, you know. that I had.
25 years old you were when you took your first.
23.
Was it 23?
I was 23. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was young. I was odd. You know, there's no question when I first got the job. And like anything, you know, you just go from day to day. And I thought to myself, you know, and I got criticized, you know, I mean, I was too young, I was too this, I didn't do this. And Eddie Donovan was my predecessor, and of course he was third in the country when he left. I said, he has to be third in the country, you know. He couldn't have a losing season, you know, and have me come in. No, he was third in the country. So that was, you know, and Tom Stith graduated, Whitey Martin graduated, Freddie Crawford was sick with tuberculosis. So those are the three really big stars of his club, and I didn't have any of them, you know. Anyway, I had some winning seasons, but not great seasons in the beginning. But I always thought I had a confidence in myself because I played with a winning team, you know, the two winning clubs. So I knew the chemistry, I thought, better than anybody else they could have picked of how to build a winning team. I had that inner confidence. And I depended a lot on my teammates that I played with, John Connors, Sam Stith. Sam and Tom covered New York for me. John Connors was in Syracuse. And I'm trying to think, Jimmy Odell, another teammate of mine, lived in New Jersey. And I didn't have an assistant to recruit, you know, I mean, I was one person. You know, I was the coach, you know, I was the recruiter, you know, and I became pretty much after that the athletic director too, you know, so I had 3 jobs, and a compliance director. I had 4 jobs, you know, you know, you had to play by the rules, so I had to read the book. I had to go to the seminars and all that. And so I depended a lot on my friends that I played with for tips, you know, on players. And then I go see them play. And because we played together and we won, I would always say, you know, for instance, John, John was my college roommate. He'd call me and say, Larry, I got a kid here in Syracuse I want you to look at. I said, well, is he as good as Newhook? You know, Newhook was the guard that played with me, was opposite me when we won. He says he's better, you know. I mean, you get that kind of an association, you see what I mean? Or he's a step off, but he still can play, you know what I mean? You had that comparison. And that's what I did.
You mentioned the fact that how you played with Eddie during the Eddie Donovan teams impacted how you coached.
Right, right.
And I was just reading an article, same one you pulled up, that Larry is credited with the patented St.Boaventure press known as the, quote, nervous defense. And the frequency of his steals earned him the nickname the Sheriff.
Right, right. Right. Well, I'll tell you, when it just evolved, I pressed a lot. I mean, I would press a lot, and I'd steal a ball from somebody. I had a knack. I had good hands. But Newhook also, he was my teammate. And Brendan McCann was my other teammate as far as the guards were going, and we all could do that. I mean, that was part of our offense, was our defense. So we just naturally started pressing, and Coach Donovan let us do it. He encouraged it because it was working. You know, we'd go up against a club, we'd pick them up at half court, and we'd double team an opportunity, and there was no set way we double team. We just did it out of feel. And so that became a hallmark of our offense, really, of those 2 years. And I got a little credit for it, you know, but I can't take all the credit because I had a lot of teammates that helped me, and we could all do the same thing. However, as I started coaching, you know, other teams started catching up to it. So they started beating me, okay? So I can't use this anymore. And traditionally, we were a man-to-man pressing team. And I can remember I said, I got to do something. And Jack Kraft at Villanova kept beating me. Every year he'd beat me. And he had this 1-2-2 zone that he played against me. And he probably beat me because he had better players, but I couldn't solve that defense. You know, his players were always a step ahead of me, it seemed. So I had to, we filmed the games. So I looked at the film, and I looked at the film, and I looked at the film, and I said, you know, I'm going to play a 1-2-2 zone. And then I did it for two reasons. One, I had a player who got in foul trouble all the time, and if I had a man-to-man defense, if he got 3 fouls, I had to take him out. Freddie Crawford, he'd get in trouble. So I started, I'm going to play this 1-2-2 zone. We, you know, it was kind of shaky at first, if I can put it that way. But after a while, we got pretty good at it. And I found out that many teams didn't know how to break it either. So I'll tell you, we lived on it for a long time, and it really helped, and we started winning. And because I had kept my offensive players in the game, so they scored a lot, and we turned it around. And but I got to tell you this: when we got to the year we were undefeated in 67, 68. Yeah, 67, 68. We were undefeated. We went to the NCAA tournament. We beat Boston College at Rhode Island University. And then we went to Raleigh for the regionals, and we had to face North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina. And they killed us. They killed my zone. And I found out then I couldn't play a zone against good clubs, real good clubs. When you get to the NCAA level, you have to play a good man-to-man and have a strong offense. In other words, you got to outscore them. You got to think offensively. When I had Lanier was a sophomore when we got beat. When he got older, when we went again as when he was a senior. But I stopped playing the 1-2-2 zone right after the Holiday Festival, which we won in New York, and then we went strictly man-to-man, and I put a lot of time into good defense, good no foul. I don't want any fouls, no unnecessary fouls. A quality man-to-man defense. But you got to understand that good players score against a good defense. So you can't keep a good player down. Kelvin Murphy scored. I can name a lot of stars we played against. They all scored. But the converse to that is that they can't stop us. You got what I mean? I say they're going to score. If they get one basket, we got to get 2. So from that time on, we were offensively thinking. And we all, if you look at my stats, we all, in those times when there was no three-point play, we scored 80 points or more against quality clubs. So when we went to the NCAA, nobody's going to stop my offense. And they didn't. Except Lanier got hurt. You know, that stopped us. But I don't think, I think we would have beat UCLA. We would have beat Jacksonville easily. And we would have, I think, because they couldn't stop us from scoring. We'd put 80 points on the board against anybody. And offense wins. You know, defense is good, it's needed, but offense wins. If I can just use a golfing terminology, you win with birdies, you don't win with pars. You win with birdies. Freddie Rosetta's famous saying, I get Freddie on my side, you know. I says, Freddie, you got to get birdies. You got to get birdies to win. And it's the same thing in the sport, I think. You got to if you don't have a quality offense, you can talk defense, and defense is going to save you, and defense is going to help you. But you've got to win. You've got to be aggressive, you know. And that's the way I coached.
You talk about the guys. Everybody knows about Bob, and but you had, and we've come to know a couple of guys personally because they've been sitting in that same chair.
Right.
Just talk about those guys. When I was a kid, I could. And I still, all these years later, can remember your starting 5 because back in those days there was no ESPN, so I look forward to turning on Channel 7 and watching your games. So as a 9, 10-year-old, I knew the starting lineup for the Bonnies by heart. So could you talk about those? Sure. Those guys.
That team, that Final Four team, I had Billy Kalbaugh and Paul Hoffman as my guards. Greg Gary and Matt Gantt were my forwards. Bob was my center. And I had Mike Cull and Dale Tepus and Tommy Baldwin on the bench. But you see, I've had these kids for 4 years. You know, I had them as freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. I had 2 seniors at that time, Billy Kalbaugh and Bob Lanier. Paul was a sophomore. Greg and I think Greg and Dale were juniors, and Matt was a sophomore too. Matt Gantt was a sophomore. And if you see the philosophy that I had with the man-to-man and then the zone and then the offense, and so after we put a lot of time on defense, and then I went to offense. But the whole every day that I'm with them, I'm really I'm trying to implement in their minds that you get 2 baskets, they get 1. Nobody will beat you. And a lot of times, then they started winning, and when we won the holiday festival, through winning, they got confidence in themselves to the point where they can beat anybody. When they start thinking they can beat anybody, you got them. That's where I want them, you know, that they can, and they're cocky. I mean, I don't know how their interviews were, but I would say that they were cocky, that they were confident that they could beat anybody. That's what I wanted. That was part of my philosophy. You know, maybe they realized it, maybe they didn't, but I never criticized the kid for what he couldn't do. Okay? Because kids aren't perfect. I took what they could do, and put it together. Always what they could do. I had a kid who was the slowest kid that I've ever coached in my life. He was slow. He was just, I don't want to mention names. He was slow, but he was the best shooter and the best foul shooter I had, and he was smart. He was a smart kid. He was into computers. I think, you know, he's doing that today. And he won 2 or 3 games for me. I never mentioned that he was just. I had to lose him in the zone someplace because he couldn't catch up to anybody. But I mean, I just said you can help us because you can score. You can do all these things. I can pick things about any kid that I ever had and say you can't do this. I never said that. You can do this. This is what I want you to do. Never mind what you'll just improve that. Okay, I give an example sometimes. Well, you know, this kid can't do this. This kid can't do that. You know, you hear all this all the time. I says, you know what Lanier couldn't do? He wasn't really fast. He's too slow. Should I put him on the bench because he's too slow? If you get my gist, you know, he can dominate the whole game. Okay, I don't care how slow he is. He can dominate the whole game, and you know where the ball's going? The ball's going inside to Bob Lanier. You got a cannon, use it. You have a cannon, you shoot it. Okay, you don't put it aside. But they're talking about the kids that I had at that particular year. They had a lot of confidence. They really did, and they were never. First of all, Billy Kalbaugh was the perfect point guard for me. He was a coach's son. His dad was a coach at RPI. So I had that in my favor. He knew the game. And Billy was probably the best ball handler of those times and passer in college basketball at that time. He set the tempo. He initiated our offense. And the other kids were, like say, Paul Hoffman and Greg Gary and Matt Gantt were complementary to, the ball was going to go into Lanier, but the thing is when they double teamed Lanier, he would pass off. He was very unselfish. So we had it, like I say, we're putting 80, 90 points on the board. And the Lanier, let's say, is averaging, I think he averaged 26 points a game, but I think the other kids were in double figures. I think Matt, I don't know what the stats are, but I think Matt and Bubba were next at 14 and 15 points a game. And Billy, I think, was in double figures. Paul was 14, 15 points a game. And the bench, you know, would kick in a few more points. But it was that same philosophy of that nobody can beat us. You know, I mean, And then when nobody did, they they really flew. Let me tell you, they really flew. Well, I got to tell you about that day, okay?
Yeah.
It was the year that well, we were on probation that year, Bob's junior year. We didn't go anywhere, so it was a tough year for us. We had a good club and everything, but we lost 4 games in a row. Okay, we lost. I forget who the 4 were, but we lost them close too. And they came. They started to have their tail between their legs, you know, and they're starting to think they can never win another game. I could just sense it, okay? And so I had to do something, okay? I was not a drill sergeant. I was not a drill instructor. But that one day I did. I came in and I just was another person. I was like the strictest, ugliest, meanest drill sergeant that they could ever imagine. And I went right down to starting 5, okay? There was Billy, Hoff, whoever was starting, right down the line. And I saved Lanier for last, okay? And they could sense it coming. They could sense it coming because I kind of ragged on everybody for one reason or another, you know? And whatever I could think of, you know? You're in love or you're this, you know, you start thinking about basketball, you know, whatever he couldn't do, I was on him. But anyway, Lanier was last, and they could sense it coming. So I don't know whether Billy ever told you this or not, but the only one thing I could get Lanier on was the fact that his rebounding. You know, you got to get more rebounds, okay? How many rebounds can you get? Well, whatever I say you can get, you got to get, you know? You're not getting enough. So Billy, we called timeout. You know, I gave him a little rest, and then they knew Lanier was the last one. I had gone all I finished with the other 4 kids already, and so they knew he was next. And Billy got the kids together, unbeknownst to me, and he says, "Whatever you," and they were roommates. They were good friends. "Whatever you do, don't let Lanier get a rebound." Okay? Don't let him get a rebound. Well, every free ball the other 4 kids got, okay? And the more they got, the less he got, and the more I got on him, okay? It was really frustrating for him, okay? And the other kids are kind of snickering behind his back, you know, especially Billy, you know, because Billy arranged all this, you know. I didn't know it, you know. He didn't tell me until a few years later what he did, you know. But I was on him, and I made him lose some weight. You know, he was a little heavy, you know, and he did lose some weight. He worked out. He started, you know, went on a diet, and that made him. He was too slow, really, with the weight that he had, and he improved. That whole second half, he improved, and that was just the one day that I was on all of them, and one day for him. Yeah. The other days, I treated him like kid gloves. Let me tell you. Yeah. Well, Paul Hoffman was an all-around player. He was kind of like the John. Remember John Havlicek with the Boston Celtics? He was like that. He could do a lot of things, and he'd score. He'd play defense. He'd rebound. He'd be on fast breaks. He's just an all-around player. And I think he averaged like 14, 15 points a game for me during that time. Greg Gary was 6'4", 6'5", played 6'8", 6'9", fast. He ran like a deer. I mean, I've never seen a kid who was so quick and fast as Greg Gary was. He was a perfect complement to Lanier, you know, underneath. He gave him space when he got the ball, and he knew when he was double teamed, when to go to the open spot. He's just a fine player. I enjoyed coaching Greg. He's just gave you 100% all the time. And Matt Gantt the same way. Matt was 6'5", but played 6'9", 6'10". I think when he had a jump ball against the kid from Jacksonville, Artis, he out-jumped him, you know, for the tip. And Matt's only 6'5", you know. But Matt was the same way. Matt He'd do everything that you asked of him. He was smooth. Matt was a very smooth player, graceful player, good outside shooter. Very good on the, well, both Greg and Matt both got down on that wingman for fast breaks, and Billy would dish off, and Coffee be in the middle sometimes too. They had that down pat, you know. They just did it naturally, and we scored a lot of fast breaks because Lanier would get the rebound and whip it up to Billy Kalbaugh, and then we'd have the fast break going down. We scored a lot of points on fast breaks, and they were good at it, all of them. They were. I'll tell you, I would like to say I enjoyed that year, but I'll tell you, I thought I had the best team in the country, and there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself, maybe too much, because I kind of avoided. What I'm saying is I think I put so much pressure on myself because I really thought I had the best team in the country, and I didn't want to screw it up. If you know what I mean. And it took a lot out of me. In fact, it took a lot out of me. When you're in the coaching business, sometimes you get absorbed to the point where you ignore your wife, you ignore your kids. It's not right. It's not right. You know. In fact, one of the reasons after 12 years I did get out of it, I was too intense, and mentally too intense. I'm trying to search for the word. I just can't right now, but it was extremely heartbreaking, to be honest with you. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think he was hurt. I didn't think anybody could hurt him. And because he was so strong, you know, I mean, you could bounce, you'd fall and you'd hit his leg, but you'd bounce off, you know. But I guess it just happened just right. You know, it just happens in sports. You know, sometimes you just get hit perfectly in a way that you shouldn't get hit, and that's what happened. But it was heartbreaking, really.
Did you know at that time he's writhing in pain? Really, that was.
No, I didn't. I didn't until the doctors. My trainer, Dick Gelati, kind of shook his head. You know, it's not good. But when they had an orthopedic doctor there, and he tested the knee, so he said that you know, there was the ligament, whatever it is, was torn. You know, and I guess, you know, that was that. Then he had surgery right after that.
What was the mood like in that locker room?
Very somber. Yeah, very somber. You know, it was devastating, really. You know, well, you've had dreams all the way through the year, and I think to a T, my players and myself knew we could win. You know, we could win it all. I don't know, you just have that feeling. You acquire it over a period of time, but when you have it, and it was taken away in a very sudden way. You know, it was heartbreaking, really.
I read someplace where John Wooden, in fact, in one of his books, talked about the team, and if there was anybody during that year who they were really concerned about, was you. Right. Yeah, I heard that also, and he's right. During that Jacksonville game, I know it was such a heroic effort, and certainly the first half, you were, score-wise, you were kind of in pace with them. Did you get a sense that you were going to could come back at towards the end here? Was that? I mean, they were.
Well, we could stay with them. We just didn't, and I hate to say this, but we were playing a zone and we were getting killed on fouls. I ran out of players. They all fouled out. And in the end, that's where they had the advantage. Because Greg Gary fouled out, Matt Gantt fouled out. Trying to think of Tommy Baldwin fouled out. He was on. I threw him in. He started when Lanier was hurt. I think I had 4 guys foul out. I'm playing a zone, and I did retreat with a zone then because I couldn't match up. I couldn't offensively. I couldn't match up. But we scored 83 points. We lost, I think, 91-83. We just couldn't. They kept playing volleyball with the ball. mean, in other words, they beat us on underneath with the second and third shots, you know, but everybody, there was just a lot of fouls called on us, you know, and I thought, you know, let them play. You know, let them play. I mean, there's to be a free ball, and all of a sudden there's a foul. There's a loose ball on the boards, and there's a foul. Well, of course, my kids were smaller, you know. I mean, they're jumping up and jumping in. But anyway, that's the game, you know.
There was one call that I just
was crucial.
Again.
Yeah, it was crucial.
Hoffman.
Yeah.
I watched it.
I thought that should have been a no call. You know, I mean, that'd be my call, a no call. I mean, the guy just, what's he fake it? What do they call that?
Flop.
A flop, yeah. That's what it was, a flop, you know. And they called it. But it took 2 points away from us, gave them 2 points. And that was the turning point right there. You know, a no call, we would have just got 2 points, you know. But that was a crucial call.
What did the loss reveal about? Sometimes in a loss, you reveal some qualities of a team. And even though it was a terrible feeling to be in that locker room, what did you
Well, I think the feeling was we could have won.
Yeah.
That was the feeling, you know. I mean, that we came this close without Bob. With Bob, we would have killed him. You know what I mean? That was the feeling, really.
Does it still hurt today? I mean,
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, you know, I'm into my grandkids now. You know, I mean, I think my players feel it because they're younger. And when I was younger, I did, and I still do. There's no question. I think about it a lot, especially during the tournament time. Yeah. You know, and I can understand why my players still feel the same way, because I do. It's just the one time we were there. You know, you had your one shot, and we're a small school. And I don't know whether I could ever do it again, even if I stayed in coaching, if I could ever do that again. I mean, it was within our grasp, and fate took it away, that's all. Sure, I think about it. I do.
One of the things, you're in the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame, and in the write-up they talk about the fact that you actually had a run of 22 straight wins over the Little Three. And we also had Paul Hoffman here saying, when we played the Little Three, and especially Canisius, to lose would have been a mortal sin. Do you feel that way?
They made it that way. They made it that way. You know, of course, before the conferences formed, before we got in the Atlantic 10, and of course Canisius later on got in the MAC, and Niagara got in the MAC. But before, and that was in 1979. But all during my coaching years and Eddie Donovan's years, the key games were the Little Three games in Buffalo. I mean, that was your competition. You had, you know, that was the season right there. And I think the same thing held true with Philadelphia, among the Big Five. In New England with Providence and Rhode Island and Boston College. You had your local rivalries, which, you know, that was the big thing. And the Little Three was the big thing, you know. 12,000 people, I mean, that was, you know, would come to the game, and they'd be close, you know, and they, you know, but I got a handle on it after a while. I lost some games and got the, you know, like anything else, I don't want to lose anymore. You know, the worst thing in the world was to lose, you know, and I think all summer long of what I was going to do to start winning. And but then I started winning, and we put a string on, you know, that was that I was happy with, really. So were my players, you know. But I kind of geared them up to feel that way. You know?
Calvin Murphy, how good was he?
Excellent. He's a pro player, no question. When we played against Calvin, they didn't have the. Again, it was he's going to score. I didn't want him to score 40 points. I said, if you can keep him to 30, you know, again, you outscore him. That's all. Outscore him. Don't get discouraged if he nails the three-pointers that these young men are doing today. I mean, he was a great three-point player, great athlete. And I think every game he got anywhere from 25 to 30 points against us. I couldn't stop him, you know. I should do do the best you can, but don't get discouraged if he nails 3 jump shots in a row from 30, from way outside in the arc. I said, you just go get 2 baskets, outscore him, and we did, But we had a stronger team though, all around than Niagara did it during those years. George was a good kid. I enjoyed coaching him. He didn't like school. Okay, I had a little problem getting him to class, that kind of thing. But as an athlete, he did everything that I wanted. I think he was drafted. Well, he played his junior and senior year. We did very well because I had Billy Butler on the side of him, and they scored something like 50 points between them all the time. And Jim Sadlin was out in front. He was a guard. We had good clubs. We didn't have the clubs that I had when Lanier and Kalbaugh came along, but we did very well. I think we were 16-7, and another year we were maybe similar. We just needed a couple more wins to get into the tournament. We didn't, but we won the Little 3, which was a big thing for us. But George was a big cog during those years. I mean, he would give me 25 points without any problem at all. And he was unselfish. He never caused me a problem. I got to say, the kid did a nice job for me. He's an excellent athlete. He was good in baseball. He was good in football. I think he got drafted in all 3 sports when he graduated, too. But George was to himself a lot. He just didn't bother anybody. He just did his thing, left. I don't know what happened to him. He played in the ABA for a lot of years after that and did very well. But then I lost track of him, after that. I don't know where he is today, but he did an excellent job for me. There's a lot of there's what they call a Bonaventure spirit there. I think it's a very first of all, they got an excellent faculty. I got along with the faculty very well. A lot of, when I was coaching, a lot of the faculty, in fact, when I first got there, the head of the phys ed department and my Spanish teacher who I had in school and my English teacher took me under wing and we went and played golf, so I got along with the faculty very well when I was coaching there. But I thought it was an excellent faculty. They went the extra mile for the kid, the student, and it's in an area where there's not a lot of diversion, for kids to get diverted. You can study, in other words. You're there to study. You're there to get your education. They have a good time, but it's a very warm place. The Franciscans are a very warm group of men. Some of my best friends were Franciscans. Most of them are passed on now. The younger ones are coming up, but the ones that were helpful to me were some of my best friends, really. Not only as a student, but as an employee there. I can't say enough about the university. Sister Margaret's a wonderful. I've been associated with Sister Margaret because, during the last 12 years that she's been, I think she's done a great job. I mean, a wonderful. Every time I go down to school, there's another building up, and she's. I told her, I wrote her a letter. I congratulated her on her tenure, and she's retiring and everything. I says, but you know what your next job is going to be? Secretary of State. I said, so be ready. Be ready. I like her. She did a great job, Well, Georgia Tech, we played Georgia Tech in the Florida tournament, and we beat them. I think could have been in an overtime. It was a close game anyway. We were very evenly matched, and then we faced them in the NIT. And again, it was a even Steven game, and then we lost in an overtime to them. But that was heartbreaking too, because we didn't play really well. That team would play. Every team has a characteristic, a personality, and that team would play 3 good games, and then they'd play an off game. And during the season, they won the off game. You got what I mean? For instance, you can, if I can give you a metaphor. All right, guys, the game's 40 minutes. If you play 35 minutes of good basketball, we're going to win. Okay? You can play 5 minutes of not so good basketball, we're still going to win. If you start playing 34, 33, 32, 31, sooner or later you're going to get beat. Okay? So you've got to play at least 35 to 38 good minutes of basketball. And that team would play 3 good games. They'd play good basketball for probably 90, 80, at least 95% of the game, and we won. But we'd always play that one game, that 4th game, where it would be, we'd pay 31 minutes of good basketball. And we hoped that we could win that game. During the regular season, we won, but that 4th game was against Georgia Tech. And we really didn't play a great game, and we lost in an overtime. And then we came back against Duke, and the kids were disappointed. We were 17 points down at halftime against Duke. Bucky Waters was coaching then. And we came back. You know, we came back strong the second half, and we won. And Bucky never forgave me for that job. Every time I saw him after that, he always remembered that. But I mean, they came back strong. You know, they'd have that one-off game, and that one-off game was Georgia Tech.
Is there a coach or two that you respected to the point that you knew that they were gunning for St. Bonaventure, or that you knew you had to bring your A game?
Well, no, I never looked at it like that. I kind of took the long view that if we've got to have a powerful offense. If you have your powerful offense, okay, good defense and a powerful offense, let the chips fall where they may, okay? And again, you got to play 35, 36 good minutes of basketball. And if we lost the game, I'd give them a reason why we lost at the end when we lost the game, because a lot of times, you know, we went into Chicago against Ray Meyer's teams, and we never won there. And Ray said, "You'll never win here." I said, "I know I'll never win here because I wanted to get you in Buffalo." So I have the stats in front of me. You know, if we lost the game, I didn't want them moping out. I wanted to give them a reason to think about, you know. And I never criticized a kid or anybody for the game. For instance, the biggest thing was foul shots. You know, I'd want them to take 50 foul shots at the end of practice. And I'd have the manager take 10 at a time, and I want the manager to copy down what you made out of 10. So, and then the manager would give me at the end that they made so many fouls out of 50. All right? Well, I knew they were cheating on me, okay? I could tell. You know, they tell the manager, I made 8, you know, I made 9, you know, I mean, they'd probably take 5, you know. So we get in the game, and sure enough, at the end of the game, we lose the game. At the end of the game, I'd get the stats, you know, and there's the foul shots. Team foul shots, not individual. I go the team foul shots. We shot 60% foul shots, and they shot 80% foul shots. I says, now why did you lose? You lose because you didn't practice your foul shots. I says, if you're going to shoot 60% foul shots, you're not going to win. Turnovers was another thing. If you commit turnovers, more turnovers than the other team, they deserve to win. They're making less mistakes than you have. So rebounding, you get out-rebounded, okay? So between the turnovers, the rebounding, and the foul shots, the shooting percentage was another, but shooting percentage you really couldn't control because you got to take good shots. If you're taking good shots and the ball's not going in, that's sports. So I didn't put too much time on that. But the other 3 I put a lot of time on, you know, because I could really get on them for that. But give them a reason that if you play better, you'll win. Don't go crying. Don't go weeping that the referees did you in. I says, you got to understand that you got to overcome the referees. I don't want to hear anything about referees. I just don't. You know, everybody complains about referees, you know. They're the whipping boys, you know. I says, forget about the referees. I says, you got to overcome all of that. I said, you get a bad call, you got to be twice as good. You've got to win it yourself. Nobody's going to give it to you. So I, you know, whenever I heard any excuses, I don't want to hear excuses. You know, we'll look at the turnovers, look at the rebounds. We got our rebound and we committed more turnovers than they did. That's why you lost. So let's go back to practice and try to improve, you know. And take your foul shots. Take your foul shots. Don't cheat.
What's the question we should be asking you?
I don't know. How was it with my wife? I was pretty bad. Let me tell you, home life was bad. I don't know. I tell you, the one thing about coaching that is a negative, really. I mentally forgot her. I ignored her. God bless her. She stayed with me. She supported me. She put up with me. There were times that I was just so absorbed. I was absorbed on the phone every night with recruits. I was absorbed in the games, preparation, and everything. The intensity was just, for me, you know, I'm an intense person. But that, if you ask me what my home life was, it was difficult. I made it difficult. What my wife didn't make, I made it difficult. I got to the point where, you know, my kids were growing up, and it was a conflict within me. You know, I mean, can I continue doing this? I couldn't. That's why I retired, you know, from coaching, so that I could live a normal life, really, so that I could say hello to my wife at dinner time, you know, kiss her goodnight, and just be a good husband, you know, instead of just being there and ignoring her, you know. God bless her.
Well, tonight you're going to the Cameron Hurst graduation party. We're going to let you go here soon.
Okay.
What's your advice to Cameron as he starts his first year at your alma mater, St.Boaventure?
I do the best you can, and first of all, you know, I would say if you always do the best you can on your test, do the best you can with your talents, because that's what you're going to carry through life with. You know, whichever direction your life takes you into, journalism, and there's different careers in journalism, then you're geared to doing your best. You're trained to do your best. Don't be half best. Don't go 50%. Go 100% all the time, and no matter what you do, and try to be the best. You know, pick your spots, and respect authority. Respect your associates. Okay, as you go through, because they in turn will respect you, and stay truthful to your religion and God.
And go Bonnies.
Go Bonnies, right.